Versus, where Carl Shalahorn mashes up music and mental health in a way you've never heard before. Carl dives into topics such as trauma, depression, and anxiety with compelling guests and captivating music. Mental Health Versus, a show both entertaining and informative. Check out Mental Health Versus, Mondays at 6 p.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY. WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chrissy Casilio.
I am Chrissy Casilio, and today I am proud to announce my candidacy for Erie County Executive. The stakes have never been higher, and I believe we will win because you will not find a greater contrast to Mark Poloncarz than me. Their lack of leadership and action is not acceptable anymore. Sadly, the current administration has put a higher priority on protecting political allies and supporting county taxpayers. That will change when I am county executive.
Oh boy, we're in for a real rousing time now. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast, Living for the People. Focus on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following the Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you know that our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. We love to have these conversations. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're here with Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century that gives us permission to walk around acting like we know something about the electronics that makes these things possible. But really, it's Willie H. who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody. I got to give kudos today before I let you come back on. I got to give kudos to, first of all, James Braun for giving me the bites, sending me the bites, for Gregory Harvey for sending the bites, and also I now have a Wi-Fi stream connection hardwired, so I'm excited. That's a geek thing, y'all.
For those of you all that don't know what he's talking about, you don't need to know the whole thing. Just know that it takes him 5 or 10 minutes every broadcast just to do the initial wiring, so that we have the program online and we can live stream the program.
Right.
So doing what Greg did for Willie, we no longer have to do that. So that saves him 5 or 10 minutes.
Just 1 second, plug it in, I got it.
And you know, when you're doing radio, time is of the essence. Because radio can't be silent. You have to be doing radio all the time, right? And shout out to James Braun, our producer. He's getting better and better. We hope to have him in, very soon. Norm Carter is out. He's still a little bit ill.
Yeah, I think he's under the weather.
He's our in-studio audience of one who's now absent. So I wanted to get into something today. Sometimes you need to look at something specific and practical to understand the larger issues that are facing us as a community. What do I mean by that? You've seen these people like Jim Jeffries and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosars and Kevin McCarthy and so on, just blatantly misinform, sometimes outright lie, but they do it under the cloak of they're doing investigations. They're asking questions. They make it seem like they're legitimate, honest people that are trying to do the actual work of protecting the interest of the American public. And sometimes you need to look at a specific example of that. And I want to look at one that's a local example to help us understand the dynamics that are going on here. I'm one of those people that thinks that whatever qualities I want in an elected official that's going to represent me, the first quality that I want in that official even more than how many degrees you have, how much money you have, what kind of job experience you've had, how talented you are, how well you can sing. In addition to all those things, before any of those things gets on my plate in terms of my considering a candidate for an office, the number one thing that I'm looking for is honesty. A person who has personal integrity. Because if you're an honest person, you could be wrong in how you think about something. If you're an honest person and I present to you information that shows you objectively that what you've been thinking was wrong, you will change your mind because you're an honest person. If you're a dishonest person, nothing I say to you is going to change your mind because you basically made the lie your truth. I want you to understand this in the context of the soundbite that we just heard. I went to an article written by Charlie Speck that was entitled, County Executive Candidate Has Regrets Over Posts, which is a very soft way to describe what actually went on, with this candidate. This is in the Buffalo News on March 19th. The endorsed Republican candidate for Erie County Executive says she regrets spreading conspiracy theories about Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin and writing other controversial social media posts. Now, why does she regret those things? Probably because it got published that she wrote those things. If it didn't get published that she had written these things and you all found out about it, she wouldn't be regretting it. But then I digress. Her name is, I think it's Christine, but they refer to her as Chrissy Casilio. Her post included comments and replies to other Twitter users about the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. She had posts that she either co-signed or wrote about whether the 2020 presidential election was rigged, and she also posted stuff about a debunked theory. Check this out. A debunked theory alleging that online furniture store Wayfair was involved in sex trafficking.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second in terms of what her basis was for why she felt they were involved in sex trafficking. But Casilio asserts now, she says, and I'm quoting her, quote, as a private citizen, I'm going to take accountability for the things that I have posted on social media in the past. Long ago, in the past. This is not me now.
She's trying to clean up.
That was me, before, when I was trapped in some oddball thoughts, based on, the bubble that I was walking around in. But
She's
now,
trying to clean up.
Now that I'm a countywide, world player,
right.
I know better now, right? I mean, that's the implications. She says, I have some regrets, but I have no problem taking accountability. So let's think about this for a second. What does her qualification of her taking accountability have to do with her being a private citizen? Her quote was, as a private citizen, I'm going to take accountability for the things that I have posted on social media in the past. What does her being a private citizen have to do with it? If she was posting this as a candidate for a public office, like county executive, would that make the integrity or the honesty of her reports any different? What does as a private citizen have to do with it? So what we know is that people, not just politicians, hide behind words to mask their intents, and that's what you're going to see in this discussion about this Casilio candidate.
Well, Mr. Hare, I think what she probably was trying to say is, as a private person, I could do all that, but I know now that I'm running, this may come back to bite me, so I'm going to try to clean it up now.
Right. See, so as a private citizen, I could say all of this stuff,
right,
and nobody would say anything about it because I was a private citizen.
Right.
So why would they bother to say anything about it? But now that you've discovered me, as I decided to become a candidate, and now you find out what kind of stuff really goes on inside my head, I need for you all to know that's not what's really going on inside my head. I was just kidding. Yeah. We were just playing with the public.
Right.
So I asked, what did Damar Hamlin do to her or her fan base to justify her slanderous attack on him?
Yeah.
What did Damar Hamlin do to her?
That.
Did she think that he faked nearly dying on the football field? Is that what she think a thought happened? But then she apparently thought that the entire electoral apparatus of the country joined together to fake Joe Biden's election to the presidency of the United States.
Maybe that's what she was trying to do, Mr. Hare.
See, you got to stretch these things.
Yeah, maybe what she was trying to do. Here's another fake.
There you go, right?
Yeah, escapade.
See?
I think that's what she was trying
now
to do.
Now you know that the Democrats must have faked the election because they faked DeMar Hamlin's death. Good gracious! This is what's being. This was someone who was nominated by the Erie County Republican Party recently, as of the 19th of this month.
Wow.
We're talking about 4 days ago. This person was nominated to be the Republican candidate for county executive in Erie County, and this is who this person is, right? I mean, I just want you to understand, and you're going to see a passel of people that are going to be her supporters who are going to say, well, I know that she said all of that, but she didn't really mean it. Because how do I know she didn't mean it? Because she said she didn't mean it. You know, so we shouldn't judge her by what she said. We shouldn't judge her by what she's done. We should judge her by what she claims she intends to do and the basis on which she's going to do it. Well, we'll talk about that too. In her first public comments on the matter, Casilio also defended some of the remarks and said that her Democratic political opponents were cherry-picking these things and taking them out of context. Then we always hear the cherry-picking story, you know, every time. So I asked, well, which of her remarks were the cherry-picked ones? She now wants us to, the rest of us, to buy that she is some sort of algorithm master, just putting stuff out there to see what the public's reaction would be. This would be sort of like putting out to the Twitter world that several banks were too low on money to meet the withdrawal demands of their daily depositors just to see what the reaction would be. Can you imagine if you found out that somebody who worked for J.P. Morgan, you know, or worked for Wells Fargo, you know, or work for HSBC Bank, you know, some large national bank, that they went out and told people on Twitter, you know what, HSBC, they're not going to be able to respond to your claims, you know, if you want some of your money back from your deposits, because they have become illiquid. You know, they took your money and used your money to buy long-term bonds that only had a 2% interest rate, and the Federal Reserve has raised the interest rate to 3.5%, 4%. So those bonds can't be sold. They're not that they don't have any value, but they won't be able to be sold until their date of maturity. So if they bought 10-year bonds at 2% interest rates, you can only get 2% interest returns on those bonds. So those people who are holding those bonds can't sell those bonds if you can get bonds from the same place, from the Federal Reserve or from the U.S. Treasury, that are paying you 3.5% and 4% and 4.5%. Why would you buy a bond that only pays 2%? So because they did that, they don't have money on hand to be able to pay their deposits. What I made a complicated, you know, story, but what if they said something like that, right? And then that gets out into the Twitter world. HSBC, they might not be able to give you your money on time because they don't have enough hard cash money on hand. And then that goes out to another person, before you know it, it's out there. And then a panic, a run starts to go on that bank, but not just that bank. Now other people doing what she's doing start lying about it. Mm-hmm. You know, I heard from a guy over at HSBC that HSBC has run out of money. They don't have any liquid money to be able to meet the cash demands of their depositors. So you all ought to check out what's happening at your bank and sending that kind of thing around. That's what happens when you lie and you put these lies out into the public and there's nobody checking on these lies, and it just takes on a life of its own.
Now, Mr. Hare, when Chrissy talked about Hamlin, did somebody get upset? Did the mother hear about it and got upset, or who did
I don't see
get upset?
anything in the story about her mother being upset. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that I was upset because I know that DeMar Hamlin still lives with his mother.
Right.
Right. He means he's just a child.
Right.
He's only 23 years old, right? And so how do you think his mother felt when she heard from media reports, we just heard that your son is dead? Well, no, I just talked to him 5 hours ago.
Right.
I'm sorry, baby. It's, you know, we wished he would have lived. And then she goes to the hospital and finds out that he's not dead.
Wow.
How do you think she felt about that?
Yep.
How do you think his brother or sister felt about that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. She claimed she says, my view of social media, especially on Twitter, was to kind of provoke conversation and influence the algorithm. So you say that somebody was dead who's not dead to provoke conversation so that whoever runs these algorithms that drive what gets sent to you, you know, to your email address.
To her base, actually.
Right. You know, so I guess you have a Twitter account, and they advertise stuff to you based on the algorithm.
Right.
They advertise stuff to you. They send you notices about other media programs, other television programs, and so on that they think you'll like based on what you've been inquiring about on your Twitter account.
That's correct. That's this generation, Mr. Hare. They put stuff out there because they're trying to provoke a thought or people thinking a certain way or, you know, whatever to get attention. And they'll put out lies and whatever. And those algorithm goes to all those people that has that same algorithm as there, whoever they're associated
and Willie,
with.
I just want to say this again for the 1 billionth time. I don't care what people do, whoever you call people is. I don't care what they do. I care about truth. And so if you're the kind of person who would put a bold-faced lie out to the public and not tell people that this was a joke, that you were lying when you said this, if you're that kind of person, I don't want anything to do with you. That's really where I'm coming from. I know that that's what people do.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of insidious people out there. People steal. You know, people spit on the sidewalk. People do a lot of things. They don't put garbage in the garbage can. They throw it on the ground. Just because people do it doesn't mean it's okay.
Right.
We have to stop accepting that. And then for a person to be nominated to be the Republican Party's nominee to run for county executive to get the support of half the county, you know, to come your way, and for you to be the kind of person who would do something like that, that's really what I'm trying to focus on here. And we have a lot of these kinds of people that are in charge of much of our government right now. That's who these Marjorie Taylor Greens and these Matthew Gates, you know, and these Paul Gosars and these Marjorie Taylor Greene type. That's who these people are, right? And that's what we've got to get our arms around. So whether I believe in the topic or not, I try not to. This is what she says. As a marketing PR person, she says, I know how that algorithm works on Twitter. Whether I believe in the topic or not, I try to comment about it to get reaction, to get likes, to get comments.
Right.
So she takes no response. She says things that are lies, not just things that are you know, her opinion. You know, could this possibly be, you know, or some twist and turn of how to assess what's going on, you know, in some event or trend in the world. She's not doing that. She's posting an out and out lie that she knows is a lie. And she says she does it to get reaction, to get likes, to get comments.
Yep.
Her Twitter account, which since she's deactivated it since this was all posted or all discovered, I think it was on February 27th when a lot of this stuff got into the public domain and people started knowing about it. It's February 27th was when the Republican committee announced its endorsement of Christine Casilio to challenge incumbent County Executive Mark C. Poloncarz. That same day, the website called WNYmedia.net, they posted screenshots of a Twitter exchange that Casilio had with WKBW TV anchor Jeff Russo, in which Russo pushed back against her false claims made by Twitter users alleging that Hamlin was dead. And this is what she calls cherry picking. You say on your account, your Twitter account, you say that there's something wrong. There's something going odd out there. Damar Hamlin is dead. You say that, knowing that you're lying when you're saying it. Then when it gets reported that you said it, you say, well, that's the Democrats cherry picking, my statements. What's cherry picking about that? Either you said that or you didn't.
Right.
The Buffalo News obtained a screenshot of tweets that she since deleted, referencing the injured Bill's safety, including one screenshot that said, this is what the screenshot says, quote, did the Buffalo Bills bomb their game because they were distracted about the potential fake Hamlin Island PR stunt taking things too far. Now, that's her tweeting. That's not somebody cherry picking.
Right.
That's her tweet.
Right.
Right? Doesn't that imply that she's suggesting that, people were saying that Hamlin was dead? Then Casillo told the news that she said, well, I never doubted that Hamlin was alive. She said she felt that Bills fans were disappointed in not seeing more pictures or videos of Hamlin in the days following his injury. I just thought it was handled, the way it was handled was interesting, to say the least. Now, what does that smugsy remark supposed to mean? Let's unpack it. She thought that the Bills fans were upset about not seeing enough pictures of Hamlin in the days following his injury, so she posted an assertion that Hamlin was dead. I wonder how she thought Hamlin's mother felt about this. Did she think that the Bills not posting enough pictures of Hamlin to satisfy her, that was somehow mysterious and that justifies her saying something that was patently untrue? It just doesn't. What was it was handled? How it was handled was interesting. What does that mean? The guy passed out on the field. He moved. He actually made a tackle, stood up, then fell down, crumpled like a sack of potatoes, moved a little bit. They got him on a stretcher. Somebody pumped him up with whatever they normally do with that, not normally, but whatever they do for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. You know what I mean? The CPR stuff that they do to people. They got him to breathe again. Then they took him to a hospital. They had to get him to breathe again in the hospital. But, he survived, right? He came to. What was the conspiracy that the Bills were engaged in, by not posting pictures of the guy in the hours after or the day after, this horrible, incident occurred? Makes no sense, but it makes sense. My point is, what does this say to you about Chrissy Casillo that she would be saying stuff like this? The Investigative Post, which is a nonprofit investigative reporting website, they published additional tweets written by Casillo. They published one that appeared to question whether there was a connection between Hamlin's injury and recent strokes suffered by team owner Kim Bagula, Bills announcer John Murphy, as well as what happened to Damar Hamlin. And she quotes, this is the tweet. She says, Kim Pagula, stroke. Damar, heart attack. John Murphy, stroke. But don't question anything, all normal, exclamation mark. Did she think that was funny? Did she think that was cute?
Yeah, she was trying to provoke attention. That was.
But why would you provoke attention that way?
Well, this generation, like I was just telling you, they do anything for attention.
We need to remove the generation. Take them out. I know you got the Z generations and X generations and whatever ones are saying this sort of stuff, move them out. Send them out to the Atlantic Ocean and let's be done with that.
Well, no, just
something. Just whatever you normally do. You got the 21st century citizenship, card. You need to go in and do something with those folks. She claims that, quote, there were people questioning what was going on. They were questioning what was going on because Kim Pagula had a stroke, because Damar Hamlin had a heart attack, and because John Murphy had a stroke. people were questioning what was going on. Well, they were sitting around in the bar and saying, man, did you see that? John Murphy had a stroke. Tim Pakula had a stroke. Damar Hamlin had a heart attack. What's going on? Is it the rapture? What's happening? I mean, this is patently insane. So anybody, in my view, concluding that there was a conspiracy underway because 3 people involved with the bills had serious medical incidences, anybody who concluded that that was a conspiracy needs to check their brains into a hospital. How could you possibly read conspiracy into the fact that people who were middle-aged people or older had strokes or a heart attack? Except for Damar, but Damar was playing football and got crashed into by 3 other people coming at him at lightning speed, okay?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's why he got knocked out, right? Casillo told the news when asked about the tweet, I obviously said things that I regret. I wasn't implying anything. This is her taking responsibility for her words, claiming that she wasn't implying anything when she obviously was implying something. The WNYmedia.net article also referenced a debunked conspiracy theory. You'll love this one, Willie. It was about the online furniture company Wayfair. You know, Wayfair just what I need, whatever that jingo is, right? So that company allegedly being involved in child sex trafficking. She says the conspiracy theory, which police has ran down and said was completely false, alleged that the company was involved in sex trafficking in part because the names of some of its products match the names of missing children. So if you have a product and the product's name was Willie, and there was somebody in the United States who's missing whose name was Willie, that means Wayfair must have had something to do with that. They kidnapped and killed Willie, and then made a doll and named the doll Willie, so that the people would buy the doll because the doll would remind them of Willie. Oh my! Wayfair just got just what I need. Wow. Just insane. The names of some Wayfair products match the names of some missing children. That was the basis for Casillo asserting that Wayfair was involved in sex trafficking. Wow. Then Casillo claims as her response back in 2020, not a response today, but a response back in 2020 when she was still crazy, with the internet madness that she was involved in. She claims, well, quote, if there is no truth, why did they pull the items? Why did they pull the items down? The items that had the names of missing kids, right? Well, they probably pulled the items down because somebody out there like her was making up these stories about missing kids and Wayfair having something to do with it. So they just pulled those things off the shelves so that nobody would keep saying that stuff, about Wayfair. Right. But that would be like thinking. And we can't apply thinking to the thought process that Christine Casillo appears to be evidencing. She also wrote, they have those emojis that you have, you know what those things are, right? Yeah. Well, they had one of the emoji that implies that something, you agreed with something 100%, whatever that emoji is.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
Okay.
In red.
It's okay. Which signifies agreement. So she wrote below a tweet, she wrote this 100% emoji below a tweet by another user who stated, there are not 2 parties, there is one globalist party with a few honorable Americans on the fringe. The tweet stated that the country's politicians, quote, destroyed Trump for exposing the swamp and created a pandemic and rigged an election to do it. She agreed with this 100%. 100%. Wow. Casillo told the news that, well, no, I did not share those beliefs. I guess, she says, I guess she just shared those beliefs with those people on Twitter, even though she didn't share those beliefs personally.
When you put 100% emoji, that means you're
100%.
100%.
Right.
People don't, whenever I put a 100%, I agree 100%. Not 99, but 100%.
But 100%. Yeah. But she's just like her fan persons, like Donald Trump and Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar and this ilk. She seems to think that Americans' heads screw on and off. She said that she was, quote, "I'm not going to let Mark Poloncarz and his cronies diminish me to these tweets because it's a distraction from the disaster that they've created."
Well, she might have a point there, though. She might have a...
What, the disaster that they created?
Yeah.
She hasn't even described what the disaster is, let alone whether or not they created it.
Gotcha.
But that's neither here nor there. She's saying that she's not going to let Poloncarz and his cronies diminish her because of these tweets. I'm pretty sure that Casilio's tweets are diminishing her all by themselves. You read these tweets, you say, that's who she is? She's crazy. I don't want her in charge of nothing that has to do with me. I know we're getting near our half-hour point. Casilio claims, "I honestly couldn't explain to you what a globalist party even is. Everyone has things that they probably have regretted on social media."
Hello, Jay.
Right? Especially if they have never been a candidate. So essentially...
Yeah, is it possible you could wait till the break?
Well, essentially, Casilio wants us to believe that her not even knowing what a globalist party or a globalist company was, and that the rest of us had never been a political candidate before, and that this is the world that we lived in, that justifies her tweeting or co-signing these nonsensical tweets. But she wasn't done. In a reply to former Democratic County Executive candidate Nate McMurray, who was since dropped out of the race, Casilio suggested Trump supporters who were attacking a police officer that day were not actually supporters of the former president. She said again, you think these were Trumpers who drive around with back the blue flags. No, these were people who were anyone else, a wolf in sheep's clothing. And of course, PolitiFact found in their fact checking that there's no evidence that members of Antifa disguised themselves as Trump supporters and stormed the Capitol. Video photographs from the scene show people wearing and waving Trump-branded paraphernalia and flags, and reporters covering the events have described the crowd as Trump supporters. I just wanted to give you an idea.
We got a caller, sir.
What we're talking, and now I know we're at the end of our break. Can we take it before the break?
Take it.
All right, let me take that call right now. Hi, caller, are you there?
Just real quick, Mr. Hare, I know that during the snowstorm that the county executive was citing the mayor for some blame during this. And I'm thinking, actually, you know, usually Republicans stick with Republicans, Democrats stick with Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on the county executive citing the mayor and how much he may have fault here?
Well, you know, it's interesting because even though they're all Democrats, you know, Poloncarz is a Democrat, Byron Brown is a Democrat, you would think they would all be in alignment with each other.
Right.
But that's only at the countywide or statewide level. When it gets down to the local level, Poloncarz is running for office in the county. Byron Brown is running for office in the city. So the fan base that Poloncarz needs to appeal to has to be a fan base that the county population is made up of. So he finds that, you know, there's populist people that are Democrats, working class people in Erie County's environment, but there's also a lot of people that are animated around this issue of critical race theory. They're animated around, you know, the giveaways they think are being given to poor people at the expense of middle class people and so on. And so he tries to make himself on their side. So being on their side, he says, well, you know, we did a good job of cleaning up the snow, you know, in the county cities that we were responsible for. I don't know why Byron Brown and them didn't prepare better. Why didn't they have more equipment? Why didn't they have a better disaster, you know, management plan? You know, so there's something wrong with them. He gets support from the people in the balance of the county from doing that, and gets some support from people in the city, you know, who also have issues with how well or how poorly they felt that the snowstorms were responded to.
My point being only that Casillo is pointing towards Democrats as staying together as through thick and thin. And here it seems that Democrats are actually more independent and they're doing things for the people and not being cronies, as she's asserting.
Remember the paradigm that we reminded people about on Monday.
That's my point.
At the end of the day, the only impetus, the only drive that endures under all circumstances, all of the time, forever, is self-interest. Everybody will do what they think is in their own self-interest all of the time. Mm-hmm. If you want something to persist, make sure you can align it with people's perceived self-interest. If it's in their self-interest, they will continue to do it. If they don't think it's in their self-interest, they'll stop doing it if they ever started doing it at all. That's the reality. So Mark Poloncarz does what he feels he needs to do in order for him to win his election in the base of people that he has to get elected from. Byron Brown does the same thing for his base. Sometimes those bases align with each other. Sometimes they don't. They're always going to do what's in their self-interest.
I'm just saying her accusation of Democrats being political cronies, they're always in lockstep with each other, is really not necessarily true. And here Poloncarz is being a little independent of the mayor.
Yeah. But if anything, it shows you that the Republicans are pretty much in lockstep with each other. Right. Because they not only do they support things that you would think Republicans would not support, they support things that are patently untrue that if they have any sense, they know are patently untrue, and they support those things anyway. So we have a different Republican Party now. When you and I were growing up, Jake Javits, Nelson Rockefeller, that cast of people, they were different people. I mean, my father was friends with Jake Javits, and my father was a sausage maker. He wasn't some high profile guy, right? But he was friends with Jake Javits, and he wasn't a Republican. It's a different world now than it was before. People used to have some passionate commitment to being honest, to having integrity, to being sure that if you looked at them, if you peeled back the layers of them, you would see the same person. The more layers you peel back, the more of the same person you would see. That's not what's going on right now.
Unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. That's not what's going on today. And so it seems to me that we have to do the work of helping people to reconnect with what you really want to have in your elected officials, independent of whether I want you to be a Republican or a liberal or a progressive or a Wolverine, Wisconsin Wolverine. Independent of all of that, I need to know that you are an honest person, that you are a person that if you come to know that something is true that you thought was false, you would adopt truth rather than falsehood. If you came to believe something that was false and you learned that it was actually false and you learned what the truth was, you would change yourself to what was true. It may not be easy to get you to do that, but you have you're internally motivated around integrity. You can trust politicians like that. Even if you disagree with their policies, you can trust that kind of politician. But what we see going on right now is not that. It's just not that. We have a House of Representative Republicans who now have the ability to control committees in the House of Representatives, who are empowering investigation committees to investigate the people investigating the crimes committed by Donald Trump. They actually brag about it. We're going to investigate the investigators. That would be obstructing justice if you have a state attorney general who is launching an investigation into a crime or set of crimes, and you do things to disrupt that investigation. You're obstructing justice. You should be going to jail for doing that. That's what's being done by Jim Jordan and these other Republicans right now, this very day. As we're talking, they're doing this right now. That's what has to end. If this doesn't end and end soon, our republic is not going to be able to make this stand. We may not be more than 7 or 8 years away from not having an American republic at all. We'll talk about that in another part of this program.
Let us hope that's not the case. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye. I think we got to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. They are paying for the program. So thank you all. Don't go away, but we'll see you on the side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
If you're looking for a Jewish music show like no other, Cool Jewish Radio. The Cole Yehudim Show with host Mike Greenberg features the widest variety of Jewish music anywhere. Hear the newest sounds, plus the classics you know and love. Join us every Sunday from 6 till 10 a.m. on 91.3 WBNY. Cool Jewish Radio. The Cole Yehudim Show. Jewish music for the Jewish people.
This is L. Nathan here. Welcome you back to Living for the People. We're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome back, everybody.
And so I was gonna close the last segment in the program with this box note. Has America's indulgence into racism, sexism, gender phobia? I don't even know if gender phobia is a correct word, so you give me the politically correct way of saying that.
That sounds pretty good to me.
But gender phobia sounded kind of cool, and economic class selfishness. That the more perfect union, quote unquote perfect union, has become irreparably broken. I want you to just put this thought in your head. We only got about 20 minutes, but I want you to just get this percolated in your head. I went to an article written by Michael Lee that was entitled "Secession is Here. States, cities, and wealthy are already withdrawing from America." This was in MSN.com, March 20th. Journalist Michael Lee offers an insight into the direction in which America is heading, which suggests that America's dissolution as the United States we now know has already reached a tipping point of no return. Certainly the cost of the dissolution in pain, treasure, and world stability is likely to be much more than what remains of this nation can bear. For people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, another civil war is inevitable unless red and blue states form separate countries. She has plenty of company on the right, where a host of others, 52% of Trump voters, Donald Trump himself, Texas Republicans, have endorsed various forms of secession in recent years. Roughly 40% of Joe Biden's voters have fantasized about a national divorce as well. Some on the left urge a domestic breakup so that a new egalitarian nation might be, as Lincoln said, brought forth on this continent. Lee deposits in his book, We Are Not One People, Secession, Separatism in American Politics since 1776. Lee posits that secession is an extreme endpoint on a scale that includes various acts of exit that have already taken place in the United States or across the United States. He refers to this as scaled secession. This scale begins with smaller, targeted exits, like a person getting out of jury duty as a sort of exit. I don't want to be bothered with you all, so I just make myself invisible for jury duty. Then there's that progresses to include the larger ways that communities refuse to comply with state and federal authorities. Such refusals could involve legal maneuvers like interposition, in which a community delays or constrains the enforcement of a law it opposes, or even nullification, in which a community explicitly declares a law to be null and void within its borders, sort of like Arpaio in Arizona. who said that he wouldn't enforce the gun control laws because I just don't like the gun control laws. I don't care what the legislature, said. And the people in whatever it is, Maricopa County, they supported him in doing that. At the end of the scale, there is secession. From this wider perspective, it is clear that many acts of departure, which Michael Lee calls secession light, de facto secession or left or soft patriotism, are occurring right now. Americans have responded to increasing polarization by exploring the gradations between soft separatism and hard secession. These escalating exits make sense in a polarized nation whose citizens are sorting themselves into like-minded neighborhoods. When compromise is elusive and coexistence is unpleasant, citizens have three options to get their way. They can defeat the other side in the argument, they can eliminate the other side, or they can simply get away from the other side. Imagine a national law. It could be a mandate, for example, that citizens brush their teeth twice a day, or a statute that criminalizes texting while driving. Then imagine a special group of people did not have to obey that law. This quasi-secession can be achieved in several ways. Maybe this special group moves off the grid into the boondocks where they could text and drive without fear of oversight. Maybe this special group wields political power and they can buy, bribe, or lawyer their way out of any legal jam. Maybe this special group has persuaded a powerful authority, say Congress or the Supreme Court, to grant them unique legal exemptions. This is going on right now. These are hypothetical scenarios, but they are not imaginary ones. When groups exit public life and its civic duties and burdens, when they live under their own set of rules, when they do not have to live with fellow citizens, they have not chosen or listen to authorities that they don't like. They have already seceded. Present-day America offers numerous hard examples of soft separatism. School taxes are a easy thing to look at. Over the past 2 decades, scores of wealthy white communities have separated from their more diverse school districts. Advocates cite local control to justify these acts of school secession, but the result is the creation of parallel school districts, both relatively homogeneous but vastly different in racial makeup and economic background. Several prominent district exits have occurred in the South, like in places like St. George, Louisiana, but instances from northern Maine to southern California show that school splintering is happening nationwide. As one reporter wrote, if you didn't want to attend a school with certain people in your district, you just needed to find a way to put a district line between you and them. And that's exactly what they do. They just restructure the lines. They don't just do gerrymandering to figure out what the congressional district lines are. They do gerrymandering to figure out what the school district lines are. They do gerrymandering to figure out what the tax districts are, and so on. So they're using their power to control the processes that are created to enable our government to operate, and they're using those process points, their legislative authority, to create levers or to leverage those process points so that they can get what they want that way. So whatever they couldn't get through the votes of the public as a whole, they can get it by using the party machinery to get rules passed after the regular elections have taken place. They get rules passed that allow them to be able to manipulate processes so they can get what they want anyway. The net result is you end up with districts that have mostly middle income and upper income children in those school districts, and the districts that remain are districts where 70-80% of the kids are poor or very near poor people. As we've talked about in this space, we've been talked about it in a couple of years, but we'll talk about it again, that the research shows that those districts that have higher than a 20 or so percent enrollment of poor children tend to be the districts that have the most difficulty academically in the country. If you really wanted to ensure that everybody in the country is getting a quality education, and not just getting quality education, but people are having similar outcomes from their education, you need to have school districts that are basically a 80-20 ratio of middle and upper income kids and lower income kids in that 20% range. If you're in that range, you tend to have kids that finish high school that have 10th, 11th, 12th grade reading and math skills. You have kids where 65% of the kids are successful in getting into college and go on to have, professional or paraprofessional, careers. Of the kids that don't get to college, 60 or 70% of them get to go to a vocational accreditation school, get a apprentice or whatever, the entry point certification is, and then go on to have careers in their vocations and so on. It seems to me like that's a simple solution. You should just effect a solution. The issue about, well, how do we get these kids, bussed around in the county? You're busing kids right now. These kids are on the bus for an hour and 15 minutes every day, each way right now. That's right. So if busing was the issue, it would be an issue right now. So if you could bus kids all around the place for 60 to 75 minutes in the morning and often longer than that in the afternoon, if you can do that right now, certainly you can bus a kid, from the north side of Buffalo to Tonawanda, from the east side of Buffalo to Cheektowaga. Certainly you could do that, right? And if you did this and you spread the poverty out, around the county, then the kids are learning how to learn from other kids who are in stable environments. So what happens is, we talk about this all the time. There are principles. These are like God-given principles, right? You become what you hear. If all you hear is poverty, if all you hear is lack, all you hear is unsuccess, if all you hear is people being dumped on, all you hear is crime happening to you and so on, you think that's what the world is, so you repeat, you regurgitate the world. If you want to change how people behave, change what they hear. If the kids all have to go to school, change the school the kids go to, so that the schools become dominated by people that are reasonably successful, middle class and upper income children. Then the lower income children will adopt the behaviors of the behavior of how you talk.
That's correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
You speak the way you speak because the people that you were around spoke that way.
That's correct.
If you want to change the way people speak, change who they're talking to.
And I believe it's beneficial for both parties, because then you get the kids that's in the great neighborhoods, suburbs. They get used to maybe other people that's different from them, and they assimilate.
Absolutely. They learn the perspectives of the lower income children. They learn how they reason about stuff. And the opposite way. So that cross-filtering makes both sides stronger. Right? And that's really what you want, is to make both sides stronger. But that's not what we're doing in this country. We're going the opposite way. Let's just create more, lily white, or almost lily white school districts, and let's keep the thems over in the them districts. So that means, to me, my view is, if knowing that that's the case, then you have to find a way to have schools that are 90% or 80% or whatever low-income children. You have to find a way to change what the children who are going to those schools are hearing every day, that they're seeing every day. You have to change that. And that means your teachers have to change. They have to change what it is that they're using as their teaching models, what they're using as their reference points. They have to make different kind of demands on children. You have to say to a child, honey, I know that you is sounds like a good thing to say. There's no English sentence that starts with you is. That does not exist. So tell me how to say that again. Repeat to me the correct way to say that. And do that. That's when we were kids. I know not when you were kids, because you all went to the liberals, the schools that were imprisoned by liberals and whatnot. But the school that I went to, teachers stopped you. When you said things incorrectly, they stopped. Oh, what did you say? And then they would make you say it, because they knew you knew better, because you had been taught better. So they would make you say it better. And if you did that, even if you still, have your sort of, neighborhood dialogue, dialect, in your communities. When you were in school, you knew how to speak school language.
Correct.
And that meant that when you got older and you had to go to college, you went to work, you could speak college language, you could speak work language, and so on. And that changed the entire matrix of how you evolved, how you grew.
That's correct.
As a child. Over the past 2 decades, scores of white wealthy communities, I know we only got a few minutes, have separated from more diverse school districts. The creation of parallel school districts, both relatively homogenous but vastly different in racial makeup and economic background. School splintering is happening nationwide. They even create special tax districts and so on. So 11 states dubbed themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries and refused to enforce federal gun restrictions. 11 counties in eastern Oregon, for example, support seceding from the United States or seceding from Oregon and reclassifying themselves as Greater Idaho. I didn't even know that Idaho and Oregon were next to each other. I had forgotten that, right? Hoping to become a separate state, independent of Chicago's political influence, over 24 rural Illinois counties have passed pro-secession referendums. Some Texas Republicans back something called Texit. Even California has a resolution for a plan to leave the Union after 2016. So that's all I can go on this right now. I just wanted to say one little bit about Women's History Month. One of these courageous women that I haven't mentioned before, her name was Claudette Colvin. I think you and I talked about her on the way down, born in 1939. She was a teenager who refused to give up her bus seat before Rosa Parks was even, before Rosa Parks did so. When Claudette Colvin's high school in Montgomery, Alabama, observed Negro History Week in 1955, the 15-year-old had no way of knowing how the stories of Black freedom fighters would soon impact her life. She said, "I knew I had to do something." She said, "I just didn't know where or when." She got her chance on March 2nd of 1955 when she boarded a bus in downtown Montgomery. She and 3 other Black students were told to give up their seats for a white woman. Colvin, emboldened by her history lessons, she was taking Black history then. She was emboldened by what she was learning from her Black history lessons, and she said, "My head was just too full of Black history." She said it felt like Sojourner Truth was on one side pushing me down, and Harriet Tubman was on the other side pushing me down, and I couldn't get up out of my seat. Colvin was arrested and eventually put on an indefinite probation, though Colvin's courageous act occurred 9 months before Rosa Parks' similar protest. The NAACP chose to use 42-year-old civil rights activist Rosa Parks as the face of the Montgomery boycott, as they believed an unwed mother, Colvin was an unwed mother, became pregnant when she was 16, would not be the best face for the movement. Colvin, she felt slighted, but later joined 3 other movement women, Mary Louise Smith, Aurelia Browder, and Susie McDonald, as plaintiffs in the Browder versus the Browder versus Gale, which a case that ultimately overturned bus segregation in Alabama. Colvin talked about her heroic actions until the 1990s. She said, I'd like my grandchildren to say, to be able to see that their grandmother stood up for something a long time ago, and that's the story. The core of the story that I really wanted people to be present with. She was taking Black history courses in 1955.
Wow, that's awesome.
We're talking like getting Black history courses is revolutionary today. You got Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, saying that it's seditious. It's teaching treason to teach people that Black people had a role in the evolution and development of the United States as a country, and that role was sometimes proactive and sometimes it was coerced, but it was a role nonetheless. Just because something was coerced from you doesn't mean that it was not a contributory. So, for example, when people discovered that there was gold in those hills, in the western part of the country, you had Chinese people, you had African people, you had white, you had Native American, you had all kind of people, going in there trying to find that gold, right? They were exploiting each other. They were doing things, they were killing each other, over the opportunity to control, that gold.
Right.
But that doesn't change the fact that because the United States developed a gold mining industry, it was able to create a platform, a foundation of gold on which to rest their monetary policy. And that created the stability for the United States to be able to make its dollar the most valued currency in the world. It doesn't, it matters that bad things happen to make the gold standard come about in this country, but it doesn't change the fact that the gold standard came about in this country. And because of that, our monetary policy came about and the strength of the dollar came about. So you got to teach the good and the bad simultaneously. You can't judge it and say, well, I didn't do that back then, or these people were bad people then, but we're good people now. You can't judge it like that. You have to judge it in terms of the circumstances that were happening at the time and what the results were, how it affected us, as a community of people, and then learn how could we have done things differently so that if this were to happen in the future, we wouldn't behave the same way in the future as we behaved in the past. That's really what we're talking about. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We'll see you all then.
Tune in 91.3 FM WBNY Mondays 6 p.m. for Mental Health Versus, where Carl Schallahorn mashes up music and mental health in a way you've never heard before. Carl dives into topics such as trauma, depression, and anxiety with compelling guests and captivating music. Mental Health Versus, a show both entertaining and informative. Check out Mental Health Versus Mondays at 6 p.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY.